my husband's family collectively decided to push the care of my sister-in-law, who is bedridden and unable to converse due to after effects, onto me and set off for a trip to Hawaii. Just before their departure, my husband, John, said this to me: "Taking care of her is your job. Don't you dare slack off." The moment the family members left the house, my sister-in-law sat up and said, "Let's go too, right away." My name's Emma, and I'm 29 years old. I dreamed of becoming an idol in my teens, but soon realized that it was a fleeting dream, and before I knew it, I was in my late 20s. Being constantly told by my mother, who I live with, "When will I be able to see my grandchild?" I started dating the man who is now my husband, John, who was introduced to me by a friend. When I talked to John, I found out that he too had aspirations of joining the entertainment industry when he was younger. Despite our past dreams, my husband is now working at a prestigious trading company. On the other hand, I, who had joined the bank after graduating from university, quit my job when I got married to John. One day, John and I visited his family's home. John's sister, Catherine, had a fever when she was young, and it seemed that her mother thought it was just a cold. But when the fever didn't subside, they took her to the hospital. She was diagnosed with encephalitis caused by influenza, but by then it was already too late, and due to the prolonged high fever, she ended up with a brain damage and has been bedridden ever since. Furthermore, the high fever left after effects in the part of the brain that governs language, rendering her unable to converse. Given our condition, it was their mother who usually took care of Catherine's needs. Surprisingly, Catherine and I got along well, and I always look forward to going to my in-laws' house. Catherine, who can't speak, communicates through sign language, and I also learned to use sign language after becoming close with her. I said to Catherine, in sign language of course, "It feels like we've been best friends for a long time." "I think so too. Let's always stay good friends." "Yes, of course." On the other hand, my mother-in-law, who has a completely opposite personality to Catherine's, always has a snide remark for me. Our house, which is about a 30-minute drive from the in-laws' apartment, often sees unexpected visits from my mother-in-law, who comes by car and starts nitpicking. "Oh dear, my honey's shoes are terribly dirty. People will think less of a man if his shoes are dirty, so you must clean them up." My mother-in-law, who still calls John by honey: "You should always fold the laundry neatly. If not, John will be in a bad mood." It's my mother-in-law who raised John that way. No matter how late John comes home, you must not go to bed before him. Even if he says it's okay, it's not. In this way, my mother-in-law is a person who says things that are out of step with the times. Of course, while we were dating, and even when we first got married, John was very gentle and never opposed anything I said. For instance, when I was not feeling well and told him that we should eat out for dinner, he always readily agreed. When I mentioned that I wanted a brand name bag I saw in town, he bought it for me the following month. But John, he changed after about a year of marriage. Rather than saying he changed, it might be more accurate to say he returned to his true self. John would often return home late after work hours, always reeking of alcohol. Claiming to be busy, he began working on Saturdays and Sundays as well, gradually spending less time at home. Additionally, whenever he occasionally returned to his parents' house, he started to refuse when I offered to accompany him. Finally, I asked John this question: "You've become quite cold recently, like a completely different person from before, haven't you?" Then John, who glared at me for a moment, responded, "Really? Isn't that just you overthinking things? I don't think so. After all, we hardly talk anymore these days. That's why I'm saying you're overthinking it. Stop bringing this up. After saying that, he went to take a bath, leaving me unable to continue the conversation. Then one day, John said to me, "I'm going to visit my parents this Sunday. What about you?" I was slightly surprised by his words. Despite his recent refusal to let me accompany him when he went home, this time was different. Is it okay if I come along too? That's why I'm asking you. Of course, I want to go. I've been wanting to see Catherine for a while. Speaking of which, you and Catherine were strangely close, weren't you? Yes, it feels like we've been best friends forever. Hearing this, John made a slightly disgusted face. And so, on Sunday, I ended up driving us to John's parents' house. We even bought some traditional confectionery as a gift on the way. Whenever his mother sees me, she usually frowns, but her mood instantly improves when I give her a gift. As expected, when we arrived at John's parents' house, his mother greeted me as if an unwelcome guest had arrived. "Mom, please have some of these if you like." John's mother snatched the gift from my hands and peered inside before saying this. "This again? I'm getting tired of it since it's always the same. But if you insist I have some, I guess I have no choice." Despite her words, her face was glowing like a child who had just received a new toy. "Is Dad here today?" Despite his old age, my father-in-law still works full-time.
Sure.
He's gone to a meeting somewhere today. Do you need something? It's not a big deal if he's not here. There was just something I wanted to discuss with him.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about this from John. Did you want to tell your father something? It's none of your business. What are you saying? We're married, aren't we? Just shut up. As soon as John said that, his mother chimed in. That's right, if John says he doesn't want to talk about it, you shouldn't cry, dear. I realized arguing with his mother would be futile, so I stopped protesting. That's when John's sister showed. "Oh, John, it's been a while." "Sis, just in time, I wanted to talk to you about something." "What is it?" "I was thinking about taking a family trip to Hawaii next month, since I will be able to take a decent amount of time off. Do you want to join us?" "I'll pass, I don't even have a passport." I was surprised. John, who usually works on holidays due to his busy work schedule, suddenly suggested a trip to Hawaii. Is your work okay with it? I wouldn't suggest if it wasn't. His mother probably didn't like my interference with John. She furrowed her brows and addressed me. Since John made the decision, it's not your place to interfere. You really are a meddlesome woman. Mother is right. Also, the reason I asked you to come today was to ask for your help looking after Catherine while we're away. I was momentarily stunned by his words, but upon further thought, staying home with Catherine would be much more enjoyable than going to Hawaii with his mother. Alright, leave Catherine to me. But you didn't have to come all the way here to say that, did you? I thought you'd accept it more easily if I told you in front of Mother. It seemed he thought I would resist not being able to go on the trip. If I had resisted, no doubt he was prepared to have his mother tell me off. Exasperated, I left the room and went to Catherine's room. Catherine looked delighted as soon as she saw me. It's been a while. Have you been well? Yes, of course. Did something happen today that made you come? John asked me to come with him to this house. But until now, whenever I tried to come with him, he would tell me not to. This time, it's a bit strange. I think he's definitely hiding something. He's always been a man with many secrets. So, apparently everyone is going to Hawaii next month. I'll be staying home though, but that's easy around me. As I said that with a chuckle, Catherine also chuckled and said this. It would be nice if you stayed here while everyone is on vacation. Yes, I will. Then Catherine and I had a good time chatting. Talking to Catherine, it's intriguing how different her personality is from John's mother's. After about an hour, John came to call me because it was time to go home. At that moment, Catherine winked at me like a mischievous child. In fact, Catherine had told me a shocking truth and revealed a surprising plan. Then a month passed, and the day of the Hawaii trip finally arrived. So I went to John's parents' house with him. I'm not going to Hawaii, but I brought my luggage to spend the week with Catherine at his parents' house. I carried the luggage to Catherine's room. Finally happening! With that, Catherine stuck out her tongue a little and gave a laugh. By the time I returned to the living room, everyone who was going to Hawaii had gathered. Apparently, the father-in-law wasn't going after all, and he was nowhere to be seen. As the time to leave was soon approaching, the whole family began to speak in unison, especially John, who spoke with a notably loud voice. Taking care of her is your job, so don't you dare slack off. And then his mother chimed in as well. Well, I hope you get along with Catherine. You're probably happier staying here anyway. But remember, if anything happens to Catherine, you are the one who's responsible. It wasn't something that someone planning to leave a bedridden sister and go to Hawaii should say. But I chose not to respond to avoid any hassle. It didn't matter what John said to me. Since I didn't even feel like seeing them off, I went straight back to Catherine's room. At that moment, Catherine, who had energetically gotten up from her bed, called out to me, "Come on, let's get going." When I visited the family's home a few days ago, Catherine said this to me. Truth is, you can walk now. And since I've been able to walk, I've been able to talk too. Since when? Since last year, I think. But why keep it a secret from your family? Then Catherine confessed the truth I hadn't anticipated. Actually, both of our parents are remarried. I'm my father's child from his previous marriage, and my brother and sister are from our mother's previous marriage. I was honestly surprised, but I felt like I finally understood why my mother-in-law always had such a cold attitude towards Catherine. I see, I had no idea. My mother doesn't like me. I didn't want to talk to her either, so I kept pretending I couldn't. What about your father? Of course, I told everything to my father. He's always on my side. I see. So, I'm thinking we should go on the Hawaii trip too. What do you mean? Just the two of us, you and me, we're going to Hawaii on the same day as everyone else, and staying at the same resort hotel. Catherine, whose eyes were sparkling with excitement as she spoke, left me completely taken aback by her proposal. I'm so happy to be able to go on Hawaii with you, Catherine, but do you have a passport? Actually, I secretly had a passport made last month. Dad has already booked our flights and hotel, so don't worry about the money. Thank you, I'm looking forward to it. And so, we arrived today. Person waiting for Catherine and me, who had arrived at the airport by taxi, was our father-in-law, who had come to see us off. It's been a while, Emma. I've surprised you a lot, but I hope you enjoy your trip to Hawaii to the fullest. Yes, I'm sorry for all the trouble you've gone to booking our flights and hotel. Thank you. Don't mention it. You don't have to worry about it. I'll be happy as long as you two have fun. Thank you. After that, we took off on a plane from a different airline than John and the others. and arrived safely in Hawaii in the early morning. We got a taxi from the airport and arrived at the resort hotel. When we checked in, we found that we were in the same room. I said to Catherine, "Could it be that my father-in-law is used to traveling?" Yes, he had a lot of business trips overseas for work, so he's been to many countries. He said he's been to Hawaii a few times too. What about our plans from now on? I think Mom and the others will have dinner at the restaurant in this hotel tonight, so I thought it would be fun to go there and surprise them. That sounds like a great idea. I'm looking forward to it. Considering the jet lag, should we get some sleep? I couldn't sleep at all on the plane, so let's do that. After taking a shower and getting into bed, we fell asleep in no time. When we woke up, it was already past 4 in the afternoon. Catherine, who was already awake, had started to put on makeup. I'm sorry, it looks like I slept too much. I just woke up a little while ago too, so it's okay. Thanks to a good night's sleep, I regained my energy and I'm ready for battle. When the time passed 7 o'clock, I said to Catherine, "Maybe I'll go take a peek at the restaurant." When I carefully snuck near the entrance of the restaurant, I found John and his group having a meal at a table in the far back, looking very happy. Since it was a little far from here, I decided to go a little further inside. Then I saw a young woman's back that I didn't recognize. There shouldn't have been such a woman when John and his group left their parents' house. Though I was surprised and nearly let out a loud noise, I managed to keep quiet and listen. I could hear the voices of my mother-in-law and John, albeit intermittently. I'm glad that woman wasn't here today. Drew the short straw, didn't I? My family register got tainted because of her. How wonderful it would have been if a gentle girl like this one had come to us from the start. I want to get a divorce and start over as soon as possible. Find a reason for the divorce quickly and squeeze a lot of property out of that woman. I can make up as many reasons as necessary. That woman is so terrible, I want to throw her in the trash can. I'd love to see my grandchildren if such a nice girl would be my son's wife. The mother-in-law was smiling at the woman with a smile she had never shown me before. Although I was driven by the urge to go out and see the woman's face right now, I managed to resist and return to my room. It took quite a while, didn't it? I'm sorry, but I was surprised because John brought a woman I don't know. What? Really? I was so surprised that I almost shouted out loud as well. Moreover, John and my mother-in-law were talking about creating a cause for divorce while speaking ill of me. That's so terrible. Furthermore, John said that marrying me was like drawing a losing ticket. But I'm actually relieved. Since I found out John brought a woman, I can get a divorce openly now. That's good then. Shall we make our appearance soon? Then I went to the restaurant with Catherine. Upon entering the restaurant and requesting a table close to John's, we were able to be guided to a very close table. John and his company didn't notice our presence. I could clearly hear them continuing to badmouth me. I was actually impressed at how much they could talk about my supposed flaws. Catherine looked at me and nodded with a smile. That was our signal to start the operation. I got off from my seat, walked up to John, and said loudly, "Good evening, everyone. Are you all having fun?" I will never forget the looks on John and my mother-in-law's faces at that moment. Their mouths gaped open, their eyes wide and shocked, frozen in place. After a few seconds, my mother-in-law finally said, "Why are you here? And Catherine too? How did you get here without a wheelchair?" Hearing those words, Catherine, who had stood up, turned to my mother-in-law and said with a smile, "Wheelchair? I don't need one anymore." At that, my mother-in-law froze in surprise again. "Thanks to your help, I can now move my body and talk again. I must have been in a lot of trouble until now." "You can talk? Since when?" Since last year, I think." "Then why have you been hiding it all this time?" "Because it's more peaceful that way." "John and my dear mother-in-law, you've been talking about me behind my back the whole time, haven't you?" Suddenly, the mother-in-law's face changed color. "What are you talking about?" "That's right, we didn't say anything like that. Denying it won't do you any good. I was taking a video with my smartphone, and your entire conversation was recorded there at the same time. Would you like me to play it now?" The mother-in-law remained silent, but John stood up from his seat and said, "You've been a pain in my ass all along, and now you start talking nonsense again?" Since the one talking nonsense was John, I retorted, "As soon as I return home, I will hire a lawyer and proceed with the divorce. Since you come to Hawaii with another woman, there's no way you can deny it. And you called me a losing ticket, didn't you? I will certainly demand damages for that as well." Realizing defeat from my words, my mother-in-law suddenly changed her attitude. "Listen, Emma, I really like you. So, can't you and John get along from now on? And this woman has nothing to do with John." "No, I can't live with John anymore. After all, I'm a losing ticket. John, why don't you get along with this woman? Ma'am, would you help your future husband pay me a lot of spousal support from now on? This is going to be fun." The woman who heard my words turned pale and began to tremble. On the other hand, John didn't care about the public eye and started to kneel and cry out, "Please don't make a big deal out of it. My company is strict about this kind of thing." "Is that the way to say it? I can't feel any sincerity at all." Then John, taken aback, said again, "Please, can you forgive me? If my company finds out, I'll be fired." "Well, the way you said it is fine, but absolutely won't forgive you. Going on an overseas trip with another woman while you have a wife? And leaving your wife behind at that?" Then, to my surprise, my mother-in-law began to kneel next to John. "Please, please forgive my son," she said, so crying. By the time, all the customers in the restaurant were looking at us, and the restaurant manager was coming towards us to tell us something. Seeing that, I made my final declaration. "Then, Catherine and I will go back to our room. Please enjoy Hawaii to your heart's content. I'm sure you'll be busy after returning home." Upon hearing my words, John, crying, screamed out loud, "Please forgive me, I can't afford to pay for any compensation." John's loud voice made the restaurant manager speak quickly after telling something to a nearby staff member. He was asking him to leave, as he was disturbing the other customers. However, John remained bewildered. Then, 2 sturdy security guards immediately came and took John away, holding his shoulders. John, who was crying and struggling, was helpless in front of these tall, strong-looking men. Even looking at John in this state, the mother-in-law seemed too stunned to speak. Catherine and I were surprised by this turn of events, but we also thought it served him right. A week later, Catherine and I returned home safely. It seems that John was released soon after and was able to return to his room. Upon returning to his room, John seemed to become a shell of his former self, and I later heard that he had stayed in his room until the day we returned home. The day after I returned home, I went to a law office where a friend from my university days works and requested a divorce procedure. Unfortunately, my friend was not there, but the female lawyer in charge was very easy to talk to, and I was able to talk about what had happened so far. The lawyer who heard my story said that I could divorce John and demand property claim, and promised to investigate the woman John had brought to Hawaii in detail before deciding. About a month later, I received a call from the female lawyer. She said that it was discovered that John had been dating that woman for about 6 months, and that I could divorce my husband for sure. Then I asked the female lawyer, "Could you extract as much property claim as possible from John?" Then the female lawyer nodded with a smile, and 2 months later, my divorce from John was finally settled, and the compensation from him was securely transferred to my bank account. I murmured while looking at the amount of the money. This is divine retribution for calling me a losing ticket. But 3 months later, John and my mother-in-law suddenly came to my house. Even though we hadn't seen each other for only 3 months, they looked significantly worn out. "Is there something you need? I really don't want to see your faces anymore." Then John said in a thin voice, "I'm so sorry, but can you lend me some money? I don't even have money for food." I was fired from the company and my girlfriend ran away. Then my mother-in-law muttered, "I divorced my husband. I really have no money. Please help me." And she cried. I said to the two of them, "Unfortunately, I have absolutely no obligation to help you. If I had to, I would never help you. Now, please leave quickly." I sent them back. Being bothered by them, I carelessly spilled salt on the table, so I threw a pinch of salt over my shoulder to dispel my gloom.